G'day folks, and welcome to Gormo's Shed. And today I'm going to show you how to make one of these chain wire security fences, because it's not terribly difficult. I've found a method that works pretty well for me. It's not really going to suit someone who's really pedantic about scale, especially when you consider the type of mesh that I've used to make the fence here. However, it looks okay to me, and I've gone with that system. So what you're looking at here is actually two different versions of how to do it. So we'll go into it and explain it a bit more. Well, the first bit of fence I attempted, folks, I actually put the whole thing together. Now, people normally do this with evergreen strip. They cut it up into the various little lengths and posts and all that sort of thing, glue it all together to make the framework for the fence. And you can obviously make that to correct scale, all that sort of thing. Bit of work involved, but it's fairly easy with plastic strip. The first method I used was similar in a way, in that I used, instead of plastic strip, I used metal. So I used very slim nails, bullet head nails for the posts, and then I cut lengths of 1mm wire and soldered the whole thing together to make a length of fence. And then I super glued fly screen mesh onto the frames and made my first fence, and it worked pretty well. But there was a lot of work involved in putting all those bits and pieces together, so I thought there's got to be a better way to do this, an easier way to do this. And I thought, I wonder if I can get any steel mesh from the hardware store that would be about the right size, and then I can just cut a strip off and make up my fence. And lo and behold, when I was up at Bunnings, and a few overseas folks, that's the big hardware chain in Australia, I found this wire mesh up there. Now the beauty of this thing is that it's not expensive. It was $9 for the roll, and like, there's a lot of little fences in there, folks. And the aperture, the grid, is actually 25mm square. So we're looking at a bit over 6 scale feet in 4mm. And that's the thing, folks, we're talking OOHO gauges here. So it's just a matter of cutting a length of this out, and I usually cut across the width, because that's, what's it say on the package here? It's 50 centimetres across. So that's a good length of fence to deal with. And so you can pretty much make one up in no time compared to the other method. And I'll just show you a short version, because I've got to make some to complete my airfield, and I'll just show you the method. Now folks, I've just cut off a strip, and you can see that I've got a complete sort of panel system here, and I've got good length below and a good length above. So this is the basics. Now you'll probably pick up from watching this that this is a bit bent out of shape, which doesn't really matter for normal household use, but what I do is sort of lay this on a flat surface and straighten out any bits that I need to. And this wire is quite soft, so it's quite easy to manipulate. Now what I would do now, like for the style of fence that I'm using, let's say these bottom parts will become the anchors into the ground, the extension of the post into the ground, and I would normally, I think it's just easier to use every second post. So I would cut the bottom one, here, the middle. I would just cut that flush, bang, that's gone. So that gives me a space of 2 sections there between the posts. Now on the top, I've gone with the flush top, if you like, just a little bit of post sticking up. But if you want to do the security fence that has the barbed wire or some form of wire in it, you could cut these to a desired length, and then it's just a matter of bending them to, say, 45 degrees or something like that. So you could achieve that quite easily, and you could then wrap fine wire around each one and a little dot of super glue on there to hold it in place. But for this exercise, I'm just cutting them all off fairly clean. and using them that way. So I'll tidy this up and get it ready to accept the mesh. Now I've cut this off with a pair of pliers, folks, in, I don't know, a minute. So I've got what is it, half a metre there in no time. Just already made up, ready to go. It just needs to be straightened out and cleaned up a bit. So it's very easy. Okay folks, so I've got my fence sort of prepared, the frame prepared, where I've cut the tops off, and I've left every second post there, and it's come up pretty good. And I'm going for this sort of knocked about look, not well maintained look. So if it's a bit wobbly here and there, it doesn't really bother me. But if you want to sort of straighten it out a bit more, you can put the top end, the top rail end, into a vise and pull the other end with a pair of pliers, give it a bit of a yank, and that will straighten it out fairly well. And then do the same for the bottom rail, and that works quite well. And so, you know, basically all you need is a pair of pliers, and you're in business with this thing. Also, if you feel as though you need to clean up the tops of the posts there, I would suggest you hold the post with a pair of pliers, and then come across with a file just to clean it up a bit, or use a grinder if you want to. Now what you'll notice here folks is this is standard nylon fly screen mesh that's available in Australia. You can't live in this country without this stuff on your windows. So I got it, just this little roll for 50 cents at an op shop recently, and I thought, well, maybe I can use it to make fences. But it comes in a vertical pattern, so you've got vertical, horizontal. It's tiny little squares. So what we need for a chain wire fence is obviously the diagonal pattern. So I can use my cutting mat here to advantage, because it's got 10mm squares on it, and the heavier lines actually form a perfect square. So if I line up my ruler across the diagonals on the squares, I'll get 45 degrees, and therefore I can cut out a diamond pattern. Now you can see that it's already been cut before, so really all I have to do in this situation is match that, or run parallel to that cut line, and I use a scalpel to do it. And you've got to hold down and press down very firmly on the ruler, and before you cut, otherwise the mesh is going to slide and move away on you. So I'll just get it set up so that I usually like to cut, because the mesh is a 25mm grid. I'm cutting 30mm, so I can put one edge flush with the top, say for example, and when the glue's dry I can trim it off at the bottom with the scalpel. So here we go. I'll just cut this length here. And there we have it folks, that's ready to go on to the fence. Now the first thing we need to do folks is, before we start gluing this stuff on, is to get one end of it square. So again, I've laid it out on my grid on my cutting mat here, and I'll just cut one end square. So that's done. All set to go. Now I just take my square end and put it on a post that allows the whole length to carry on, and the angled piece is just past the end of the fence. So if I start this way, if I put the square end on the end of the fence and start in that way, I'm faced with trying to cut this off at the angled end and get a clean edge there, which is more difficult. So it's better to start backwards, if you like, and find a post that suits the mesh length, and then use that one as your starting point, and then when you get to this very end here, you can just trim it off, if that makes sense. Okay folks, now I'm using just ordinary old crappy old super glue here, and I want to put it on sparingly, so I can't just do it straight from the tube. So what I'm going to do is make a pool of it in this little lid here that I've got from somewhere, and then I've got a bit of wire which I'll just dip into the super glue, and then I will apply it very sparingly to the post. And I doubt whether you can actually see this, but I'm applying it. I might put a bit more in actually, to the post and the rails. Very sparingly, just on the top. If you try and put it on with the tube, folks, it's gonna run over the edge, and you're gonna stick the whole thing to the cutting mat or whatever surface you're working on. And now we just bring the mesh back and very carefully place it so that it just sits on that post, and the top of it just rests on the top rail, and then just hold it in the middle. I found works pretty well by just pushing down in the middle until the glue takes, and maybe even push it down on the other side there. Now what we can do later on is bring up another square end of mesh to where I've started here on this post, and just gently overlap it, and that works quite well. Now this is actually working back to front for me because I'm right-handed. I would rather go that way. So once this is dry, which it seems to be now, I'll just turn that around and then I'll work that way, which makes more sense for me. But we've got to start somewhere. Yeah, so we've got it turned over. I might even just put, you can actually fold it back, put something on it to hold it. Just got a knife there. And just carry on. So we do rail, and then the post. I mean, whatever method you use, folks, you'd have to do this anyway. Unless there's a better way to do it, but I don't know. And then you just bring the mesh back over, line it up with the top rail, and don't pull on it too much, don't stretch it too much. And then when you've got it lined up, just push down both sides, and it will stick very quickly, because the thing with super glue is if you use too much of the stuff, it doesn't work as well. So that's the process, and I think that's just about taken there. As I say, just hold it in place until it's taken. Do one at a time, and gradually you'll get there. This is probably the slowest part of the whole business. Right, that's good to go. So we just carry on like that. Right folks, you finish up with something like that. Now this section here is actually quite a lot more than I need for what I'm working on there. So I will stop at that sort of length. Actually I'll probably trim it off here and trim it off there and clean it up. So I'll get that ready, and then we'll show you what it looks like. Right, so we finish up with a panel like this, and then it's just a matter of using the scalpel and very carefully going along the bottom rail and trimming it off to clean it up. Now the bottom rail, if you're using it in a section that's grassy, you won't see the bottom rail probably. If you're using it on gravel or something like that, it's probably more important to make a good job of cleaning it up. But it comes away fairly easily, and just little bits and pieces will come off quite easily. So yeah, it's just a matter of going through that process, cleaning it up. The top is not too bad. I've gone over slightly on a couple of sections, but again that can be trimmed off as well and just tidied up. So it's just a matter of going through and cleaning it up first. So there we are, folks, we're ready to roll on that section. The next process for this piece will be airbrushing. I spray this a sort of a matte earthy colour, and then distress it a bit with chalk pastels to get the rust effect on there and so on. And the chalk pastel sticks quite well to this. I'm doing it while the paint's still sticky actually, and yeah, and then we'll have to plant that in the airfield there. It's probably one panel still too long, but that's alright, I'll just trim it off. So that's the simple process, folks, and you know, it's reasonably strong, and I just push it into the scenery. I've got polystyrene as a base, so it's quite easy to put it in. I've got a plaster skin on top of that, but what I'm doing is just pushing it in and then putting a little drop of super glue around the post, and it seems to hold it quite effectively. The downside with this stuff is if you try and go up, say, an embankment or something and try and twist it to suit the contour of the land, it will distort the mesh. So this is really only sort of suitable at this stage, as far as I can work out, for flat ground, unless you're going to put it up on an embankment like that. But normally you'd have the post vertical, so it's really only suitable for the flat surfaces at this stage. I think you could do it on an embankment, but you would have to bend the wire first to suit the slope, and then cut the mesh to suit that particular panel as you go. It'd be very fiddly to do it. Yeah. Anyway, but that's the simple method, and that's how it turns out. Yeah, quite easy to do really, and saves a lot of soldering and putting bits together. So anyway, that's it for this week, folks. So I'll see you next time. Cheers, Gormo.